Good evening, everybody. I'm Norty Schwartz, President and CEO of Business Executives for National Security. The original Master of Ceremonies, Jim Sciutto, couldn't be here tonight, so I hope you'll allow me to act as the trail boss through what I think will be a very, very special evening. As you know, this is an evening when Business Executives for National Security recognizes exceptional service to our nation. Thank you. Tonight, we will continue the long-standing tradition here in Washington of bestowing the BENS Eisenhower Award. The Eisenhower Award is an important reflection of the BENS mission, and it's named after a great American hero, Dwight D. Eisenhower, whose leadership on and off the battlefield has made a lasting impression on the fabric of America. And we're honored tonight to recognize two gentlemen and their families whose work mirrors President Eisenhower's vision, the Honorable Michael Rogers and Admiral Bill McRaven. We also will reunite Air Force Major Ken Harney with the 4 Marine Corps airmen who valiantly rescued him after his plane went down in hostile territory during military operations in Libya. You won't want to miss the story of this harrowing rescue and an opportunity to give gratitude not only to them, but to all men and women who, like them, selflessly serve our nation. And now will everyone please stand for the playing of our national anthem. Please be seated. We'll now begin dinner service and resume this evening's program about an hour from now. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening again. As our servers continue to get dessert out, let me thank them and the staff for such a wonderful meal this evening. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's turn our attention to the real reason that we're here tonight. bestowing the BENS Eisenhower Award to the two incredible Americans. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker this evening, the Honorable Mike Vickers. This distinguished gentleman was nominated by President Obama as the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence in 2010, and ultimately he was confirmed in 2011. Undersecretary Vickers served as the Principal Intelligence Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and knows so very well the two men that we are honoring this evening. His lengthy career of military and public service includes time as an Army Special Forces officer, a CIA operations officer, and he has played an active role, a very active role, in some of the most critical intelligence operations of the last 4 decades. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm BENS welcome to Undersecretary of Defense Mike Vickers.
Well, thank you, Norty, for that kind introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to offer a few remarks about two dear friends and two extraordinary Americans. It is indeed fitting that Admiral McRaven and Chairman Rogers are co-recipients of this year's Eisenhower Award. In 2008 and beyond, as the gloves came off in our war with al-Qaeda in the Pakistan-Afghanistan region, Admiral McRaven and Chairman Rogers both played absolutely critical roles. Chairman Rogers played a central role in moving the U.S. government in the late Bush administration to take a far more aggressive approach to al-Qaeda in the federally administered tribal areas of Pakistan, to deny it any sanctuary and put us on a path to operationally dismantling the group. In his role as commander of an overseas joint task force, Admiral McRaven led a force that was responsible for much of the success of the surge in Afghanistan and led the mission that resulted in the death of Osama bin Laden, by all accounts, one of the greatest operations in the history of U.S. intelligence. America is safer because of their efforts. First, a few words about Bill. You may not know this, as his official bio doesn't mention it, but Bill is a University of Texas grad, hook 'em horns. And he has been asked to give the commencement address in Austin this Saturday. As it turns out, our daughter Sophia is a junior at UT, and she now thinks I'm cool because I know Bill. Yeah, go figure. Bill's career from captain to admiral has defined and been defined by the war with al-Qaeda, the war in Iraq, and the war in Afghanistan. He was in the White House right after the 9/11 attacks, writing the initial strategy for our long war, and he led our special operations forces in combat for a decade. In what I think is one of the true measures of success, one job Bill had as a 2-star when he was our special operations commander in Europe and had responsibility for preparing NATO special operations forces for Afghanistan and dealing with a lot of brush wars in Africa. It took 3 flag officers to replace Bill, a 3-star, a 2-star, and a 1-star in that job, so it's a pretty good measure of success. Bill is nothing if not resourceful. After our forces returned to base on the night of the bin Laden raid, Bill needed to ensure that we'd gotten our man. So he instructed a 6-foot SEAL to lie down next to the body bag containing UBL. Now UBL, you may recall, stood 6'4". Bill's field expedient measurement technique was indeed successful, but this prompted President Obama to inquire why DoD couldn't afford to buy Bill a tape measure. As SOCOM commander, Bill has pushed the technological envelope, most recently developing an Iron Man suit for our special operators. Now, I gotta tell you, I can't wait for this to be fielded. I figure it will extend the career of washed-up operators like me for decades. What Bill takes most pride in, however, is not his combat, not his intellectual, and not his technological exploits, but the programs he has initiated as SOCOM commander to preserve the resiliency of our special operations warriors and their family. This is a truly great program, and it has literally saved lives and families. In my mind, that tells you all you need to know about my dear friend, Bill McRaven. Now, a few words about Chairman Rogers. His leadership has been central to forging the intelligence community we have today and to keeping America safe. He is a national security strategist of the first rank, and even rarer, a bipartisan one. Mike's early career as an Army counterintelligence officer and FBI agent, moreover, have provided him with an understanding of operations that is unparalleled. Intelligence is our first line of defense. In our democracy, we can't have the intelligence capabilities we need without strong congressional oversight. Chairman Rogers has provided that oversight and then some, promoting our national security, restoring the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence to its proper place, and making the committee thoroughly bipartisan. When he disagrees with you, and when he does, believe me, you know it, it's always about policy and it's never personal, and he's usually right. When it comes to what makes for success in counterterrorism strategy, Mike and I have found ourselves like-minded. It's all about the O. Now, for those of you whose thoughts may have drifted elsewhere, it was op-tempo that I was referring to. Precision plus mass makes a powerful 1-2 punch. As you all know, Chairman Rogers recently announced that he will retire from Congress early next year. Mike, on behalf of Director Clapper and the rest of the IC leadership, we will profoundly miss your partnership and leadership. We are certain, however, that the United States of America hasn't heard the last from Mike Rogers. So Bill and Mike, congratulations on this well-deserved award. I could not think of two better people to receive it. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Vickers. We are grateful for your remarks tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, since 1982, BENS has been dedicated to harnessing the business expertise of its members to improve our armed forces and the national security enterprise. We have helped government more effectively defend the nation's interests, both at home and abroad, and we have a unique role in offering no-cost, nonpartisan advice to leaders in government. Our work is valuable and it takes place on a variety of fronts, and as we will see tonight, it represents the extraordinary collaboration and the results of that collaboration when private citizens join public servants to advance America's interests. I'd like now to call on Mr. Bruce Mosler, Chairman of BENS, to come to the stage. Mr. Mosler serves as the Chairman of Global Brokerage at Cushman Wakefield and is a longtime supporter of causes related to our military, including the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Chairman of BENS, Mr. Bruce Mosler, to the podium.
Thank you very much, General Schwartz. Good evening, and by the way, thank you for your very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct honor to serve alongside one of the great leaders of the modern American military, command pilot who rose to become the U.S. Air Force's Chief of Staff, today CEO of extraordinary energy and strategic vision, by the way, the same qualities he brought to his remarkable years of uniformed service. General Schwartz became BENS's new president and CEO last summer, and prior to joining BENS, General Schwartz had a nearly 4-decade-long storied career with the Air Force. He served as Chief of Staff to the Joint Special Operations Task Force for the Northern Iraq and Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. He has served as commander of the Special Operations Command Pacific, as well as the Alaskan Command, Alaskan North American Aerospace Defense Command Region, and the 11th Air Force. General Schwartz also led the U.S. Transportation Command, serving as the single manager for the Pentagon's global air, land, and sea transportation. In 2008, General Schwartz was nominated to be Chief of Staff of the Air Force, a position he held until August 2012. As a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he served then Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, as well as President Barack Obama, as a key military advisor. But over the last several months, General Schwartz has risen the bar, increasing BENS's public profile, often participating in speaking engagements and offering his military expertise on how to best safeguard America's national security. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing my friend, BENS President and Chief Executive Officer, none other than General Norty Schwartz. Tonight is a night of leaders. Leaders on the battlefield, leaders in business, leaders in courage and commitment. It was a leader in vision, boldness, and dedication to our country who founded BENS. A stunningly successful entrepreneur, a man of high intellect and deep conviction, and it is frankly my honor to follow in his footsteps. Please join me in recognizing Stanley Weiss. Now, we've not done this before, but I think it's long overdue. I want to ask all the members of the BENS Board and Advisory Council to please stand. I don't believe that those engaged with national security of any country in the world can call on the assistance of an organization, as Norty referenced, even remotely like BENS, voluntary, self-starting, expert. Please join me in thanking our board members and all of the BENS active members for everything they do on behalf of our nation. Please rise, guys. Shy crowd for a very active group of folks. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight to honor two great leaders. Commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command, Admiral William H. McRaven, and Chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Congressman Mike Rogers. Before we present these awards, I'd like to share some thoughts about the state of the nation and why we clearly so desperately need leaders like the Admiral and the Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the military, we are clearly in an economic recovery. Stock market, as you all know, is at an all-time high. GDP is sort of growing, and the equity markets are rising. But without a doubt, rising two are clear and present dangers to our nation. Middle East turmoil, the Iranian threat, China, North Korea, and now Russia. Every one of these challenges are raising new and, in some cases, radically new national security challenges. Challenges including a military shrinking budget. It's amazing to think that half of the sequestration cuts came from defense, which was already less than a fifth of all federal spending. In other words, they fell more than twice as hard on defense as on the rest of government, even as threats intensify. So we have to ask ourselves, under the current circumstances, which, by the way, some would say is the new normal, Why are the events unfolding as they are? Is there linkage? Not necessarily in a direct way, but in a more subtle fashion, to the behaviors being exhibited by way of example, and how North Korea is currently acting in clearly testing the boundaries of the acceptable, or more recently, Russia, clearly looking to test our will with the threat of sovereignty of the Ukraine, or finally, and how the ever-present threat in the Middle East, that is Iran's unequivocal determination and drive for nuclear capability. Is there an indirect linkage and a pattern of behavior, perhaps a common bond based on the belief that the United States does not have the will, or perhaps incorrectly assumed the means to respond effectively as a result of the sequestration? Bottom line, and regardless, the sequester does not and cannot work. America's fighting forces, the men and women charged with keeping the nation safe, should not have to absorb an unequal part of the nation's spending cuts. Government cuts must be targeted and implemented in a business-like way, allocated in a strategic fashion, where they produce the best or perhaps the least worst outcome. In other words, where the waste is greatest. Two final thoughts. First and foremost, both adversaries and allies alike would make a huge miscalculation if they underestimate this great country. President Kennedy once said, and I think he got it right, the cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender or submission. Americans have paid that price in all parts of the world. In the last decade, we paid it in Iraq and Afghanistan. And with few exceptions, wherever we have gone, the governments we left behind were freer, more humane, more subject to the consent of the governed than those that preceded them. And America has been more secure because of it. Yet in paying that price, it always comes down to boots on the ground, crews in the air, Marines and sailors at sea, and all of those who support them. In the years ahead, we will undoubtedly be asking more of, while giving less to, those who defend our freedoms. As business people, BENS members know it is right to husband our resources, but only if we do this with an understanding of our needs. We can and we must take a more thoughtful approach to investment in our nation's security. Only smart cuts allow for smart choices. Strategic cost reduction and prioritization are essential. We owe that much to ourselves, even more. We owe it to those we ask to undertake the hard and often dangerous work of defending our great nation. Thanks to them, we are still the beacon of hope for the world. Thanks to them, we remain the most powerful nation on earth. And thanks to them, we have the greatest and most capable next generation of military, diplomatic, and intelligence community personnel. So let us not forget why we gather here each year. We do so to remember those who fought, those who fight, and yes, those who made the ultimate sacrifice on the battlefields in faraway lands. In short, those who work and toil in the shadows of anonymity so we may walk in the sunlight of freedom. Sir Isaac Newton once said, "If I have seen further than others, it is only by standing upon the shoulders of giants." Ladies and gentlemen, our freedoms are a direct result of our ability to stand on the shoulders of those who serve and have served our great nation. Many such patriots are with us in this room tonight. I now ask that all of you who have served and those currently serving to please stand up and be recognized. Thank you for your courage. God bless you, and God bless America. Now, as General Schwartz said, for the reason we're here tonight. The BENS Eisenhower Award recognizes those outstanding Americans whose contributions to our country best reflect President Eisenhower's definition of security as the total product of our economic, intellectual, moral, and military strength. Tonight, as has been said before, we honor two great men, one a leader in Congress, the other a military commander, both of whom have earned the trust and respect of the outstanding men and women who serve in our armed forces. Two men who deserve the unequivocal thanks of all of us. If I may say so, two men who carry President Eisenhower's vision forward in the best way. So let me start by telling you about Congressman Rogers. U.S. Representative Mike Rogers is chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, the House's primary authorizer of funds for overseeing and the execution of our nation's intelligence activities. He believes that national security should transcend partisanship. The Washington Post has called his House Intelligence Committee leadership a rare example of bipartisanship. Along with his ranking Democrat, Dutch Ruppersberger, Mike has worked to get three intelligence authorization bills signed into law with strong across-the-board support. He has also undertaken the lead on critical cybersecurity questions, getting an information sharing bill passed in the House with an overwhelming bipartisan vote. To that we say thank you very much, sir. He is pushing for a stronger U.S. posture against Russia after the recent aggression in the Ukraine. He continues to focus on China's emergence as a competitor and on threats from terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and rogue nations like Iran and North Korea. Let me give you some well-known history on the chairman's service to our country. After serving as an Army officer, he became an FBI special agent in Chicago. There he fought organized crime and public corruption. Elected to the Michigan Senate in 1995, Mike won a seat in Congress in 2000 and represent Mid-Michigan's 8th Congressional District. Please join me in welcoming to the stage a real friend for all who believes in strong national security, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers. So I have to read the citation. Thank you. We'll be here all night. Citation says, and I quote, "The Honorable Mike Rogers has served not only the people of his district, but the American people in his role as chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and as a member of Congress. Yet his devotion to our nation's security goes far beyond the halls of Congress. He served America in uniform as an Army officer and later as an FBI special agent, helping protect us from threats, both at home and abroad. His career of public service sent him to Michigan State Senate and later to Congress, where he has received accolades for his willingness to reach across the aisle and work with members from the other party. Chairman Rogers has set a strong example for how we can get things done and find innovative solutions to our problems in Washington. BENS is pleased to bestow upon the Honorable Mike Rogers the 2014 Eisenhower Award, recognizing those outstanding leaders whose contributions to our country best reflect President Eisenhower's definition of security as the total product of our economic, intellectual, moral, and military strength." Chairman Rogers.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Wow. You know, if I knew people were going to be that nice to you when you leave, I'd have left a long time ago. Thank you. You know, and the best thing about that is one person gets up at the right strategic time to go to the bathroom, you get a standing ovation. Love that. Thank you very much. I really am honored to be here and honored to receive this award. It does mean a lot to me. General Schwartz, thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for the work that you're doing here at BENS. It is critically important. I know we use it at the committee, the product of which you produce, and I know everybody in this room touches that product, and thank you for that and your commitment to national security. Secretary Vickers, it's been great working with you. As some would term it, when you come before the committee, it's really an act of love. It feels like a wire brush. We appreciate your service, who has done a phenomenal job in a very difficult position and a difficult challenge. And I want to thank you for your service to our country and the work that you've done. It has made immeasurable difference in keeping America safe. Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate it. And you know, if you're getting ready to leave or thinking about it sometime in the future, I am going to need a wacky sidekick that can do a Putin impression, Ahmadinejad, and if you can throw in Karzai, you're golden. Oh, come on, people, lighten up, would you? For God's sake. I have to tell you, I am honored to share this stage, or candidly anywhere, with Admiral McRaven, who is, some people get woozy around rock stars. I get woozy when I walk around Admiral McRaven. The work that he has done, the leadership that he has shown the United States, his commitment to the men and women who have served under his commands is unbelievable and really unparalleled. So for those of us who get to know, most of the world really will not get to know of some of the great work that Admiral McRaven has done for his country. For those of us who are 3 stories down beneath the Capitol in the secret squirrel space, we get to know. For the men who are under his command and who have served under great leadership and have done really amazing things, they certainly will get to know. And more importantly, Al-Qaeda, who waits in a hole today wondering when he will knock on their door. Sir, they know. Thank you for your service. And by the way, I was going to wear my uniform. The damn thing shrunk. I don't know what. Left it in the closet too long. Apparently that happened. So that was the reason, Admiral, I didn't have it on. And I have to tell you one quick story about Admiral McRaven, and I'm going to tell a tale out of school, absolutely. So press, put your pens down. Right after the Osama bin Laden raid, we were going through our after-action report through the committee process, and the Admiral was there with his crew, and we went from stem to stern and went through all the data and made sure everything was the way it was supposed to be. And after it was done, I felt obligated, as a former Army officer, to stick up for my branch. After all the serious work was done in the committee, I pulled out the map, and I unfolded it, and I looked at it, and I said, Admiral, you're going to have to help me with one last problem. I'm looking at Abbottabad, and I don't see water anywhere within 500 miles of this place. And without missing a beat, as deadpan as he can get, he said, Sir, I was pretty damn sure they had a pool. I didn't even have a good comeback at that point. I was lost. You know, I'm so honored to receive this award. I think the Eisenhower Award speaks so much about what's needed, certainly in the country. 5-star general, the first commander, supreme commander of NATO, the first allied supreme commander. Really such a great American figure. But maybe what you don't know is that in his first primary in 1952, he ran against a staunch isolationist, Senator Taft. Senator Taft opposed entry into World War II. He opposed the Nuremberg trials because, quote, he believed that they were too biased against the Germans. He opposed the creation of NATO because he believed it was a provocation to the USSR. Taft repeatedly said that he did not see the USSR as a threat to the United States. You know, thank goodness Americans then saw that the national security brings a strong economy, economic prosperity and stability around the world, and that benefits the United States. And because voters in that election, that primary election, chose engagement over isolation, America became the most powerful economy in the world. That was pretty an amazing thing, coming through all of that trouble of World War II. It would have been very easy for America to reel back and pull in its folks, dig a hole and pull the sheets up over your head and go to sleep at night. We decided not to do that as a nation, and we did it really with Eisenhower's leadership about engagement. It's not that we have to fight every fight, but sometimes you got to put your shoulder to the wheel and help them out. When you look at where we are, certainly today, I will tell you, and first let me back up. For all of the folks here who understand that notion about putting your shoulder to the wheel, just for the simple fact of so many who stood up, who have served their country in one capacity, and so many of you who have served in one agency or another dedicated to national security, You understand more than anybody because you have given your deeds, your honor, your character, your careers, and your commitment to your country to stand tall when so many wouldn't. For that, I want to thank you because you know firsthand the power of engagement, the power of not letting the United States reel away from the world, the power of saying that we will stand with our friends and we will stand tall against our adversaries. You know, America is in a weird place right now, and that's why this award certainly means so much to me. I happened to go to Ukraine not that long ago, and there I met an individual who had his ear removed by the FSB. They had kidnapped him off the streets, thrown him in a room, tortured him for a while, cut off his ear. He had a cut across his eye where they were inartfully trying to get his eye out. Thankfully, they weren't successful. They drilled holes in his hands with drills and then nailed him to a wall in a basement complex. And as I was walking down the hall and someone introduced me to this individual who had survived this particular event, one of the things that the FSB wanted him to do was to make a video saying that the United States had given cash to the ambassador to give to the individuals who were standing up for their liberty and their freedom in the streets of Kiev during the revolution there. And this is a pretty tough guy. He was actually bigger than I was. He looked like he had been an athlete in his day. And he got teary-eyed as he was standing in the hall talking and said, "Please tell Americans I didn't mean to make the video. I didn't mean it." For one moment, I thought, wow, Ukraine is looking back for that shining city on the hill. They're not asking for troops or planes or tanks. They're asking for medical supplies and communications gear and intelligence help. We haven't been very good about delivering it. And I thought, when they look back, do they see that shining city on the hill? Or do they see a dull flicker of Americans who have not risen up to care about what liberty means to places outside the United States, much like Eisenhower cared about liberty outside the United States? We cannot let the world turn and not see America that has steely resolve, that knows when maybe we do engage, maybe we do send the Navy SEALs, maybe we don't. Maybe sometimes it's an MRE, sometimes it's a medical kit, sometimes it's a soldier or sailor or Marine, and sometimes it's just strong words of encouragement and support to stand up themselves against what they know is tyranny on the move. We're in an interesting place, and that's why I'm so honored again to have this Eisenhower Award and everything that it has stood for. You know, when I look around the world and see the Arab League questioning where Americans' loyalty is, when I see the Chinese on the move and our former enemy, who are now our friend, the Vietnamese, trying to stand up to a growing threat in the South China Sea, when I see the Arab League pushing back on Iran, knowing that a nuclear Iran is destabilizing to the Middle East, a price that we will pay both economically and in our national security for generations to come if they're successful. I see the women of Afghanistan who will yank on your coat sleeve if you'll give them the chance and say, please don't leave us to the Taliban. We need to shake ourselves out of this. We need to re-engage in this debate about a strong America who believes in engagement and expeditionary diplomacy. We can get there. You all have lived it. You have made that sacrifice. You have stood in the dirt. You have stood with danger, and you have made a difference. I hope that in some small way that this award, which again means the world to me because of that push against isolationism, reinvigorates all of us. And my good friend Dutch Ruppersberger, who, by the way, wants to know if he can have this 3 months of the year because I'm leaving. Oh, people, please, would you lighten up for me? Thanks. And I will tell you one last thing why I think this is so important. that the world does turn around and sees that we stand with our friends and against our adversaries together, even in the toughest of times. And again, it doesn't mean troops and planes and tanks. It means all of the soft power that we can muster to deliver a message to tyranny around the world that we are still here and we still believe. And I had that great vision of that great little bit of effort that you have made, many of you in this room have made, standing in the dirt when you thought nobody cared, standing there knowing you've missed your family. I had the great privilege to go and promote a Sergeant E5 to Sergeant E6 in a pretty remote place of the world that was working on some intelligence work for the United States of America. And given the area of which they were operating, they could not wear their uniforms. So they heard I was coming to the region and asked if I would come and make that promotion and post the orders. For a former military officer, there's no greater honor than that, to be able to promote a Sergeant E5, Sergeant E6. I was excited about it. We get there, and it was a fairly remote place. Again, they couldn't wear the uniform, so we all hustled in to a small room about the size of a Motel 6 bathroom. Yeah, smelled that way too, by the way. Darkened out windows, some of their gear is stuffed in there, but the sergeant wanted to be in his uniform during the promotion. So they got it out and put his uniform on. We only had one 3.5 by 5 flag, a little about the size of that postcard that you get. And two of the biggest dudes I think I've ever seen in my life decided they both wanted to hold the flag during the ceremony, and I was not going to get in the middle of that. So each one of them had a big mitt on each corner, standing behind the sergeant for the promotion ceremony. So we had to do it in hushed whispers, so we cracked the chem light to read the orders, and I post the orders. And when it was all done, it was, again, just kind of dark in here, and apparently short showers were optional at that point. Somebody in the back started whispering the Star-Spangled Banner. And I'm pretty sure we missed a verse. I'm pretty sure we were off key. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life, that these folks who hadn't been with their family, couldn't tell their family where they were for 14 months, who were so proud of their country and understood that their sacrifice in that god-awful place meant something to the future for their children and for our country. Let us all reinvigorate to that cause. I know that this invigorates me. Thank you very, very much for this award. It means the world to me. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for those insightful, thoughtful, if I may say so, on-the-money remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure and honor to talk about a graduate of the University of Texas, Austin, and a Naval Postgraduate School, Admiral William McRaven. He has commanded at every level of the Special Operations community. He's been a SEAL platoon commander, squadron commander, a task unit and task group SEAL team commander, Commodore of the Naval Special Warfare Group 1, and Deputy Director for Operations for the Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was the first director of the NATO Special Operation Forces Coordination Center. He helped establish the Naval Postgraduate School's Operations Low-Intensity Conflict Curriculum, and, get this, was of course its first graduate as well. We also thank him for his extraordinary heroism in making sure that 9/11 will live forever as a day of infamy. As many of you know, he organized, as has been said before, and was senior commander of Operation Neptune Spear, the Zero Dark 30 operation that killed Osama bin Laden. We at BENS are truly honored to present this 2014 Eisenhower Award to Admiral William McRaven. It is my pleasure now to invite Admiral McRaven to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome. I will be brief, and I will read part of the citation. Admiral William H. McRaven has devoted his adult life to the safety and security of the United States. A decorated Navy officer who has a long and effective record of special operations successes, his innovative approach to how the military carries out the important missions is unparalleled, and he has made our nation safer and more secure. His careful planning of Operation Neptune Spear, the special ops raid that captured and killed Osama bin Laden and delivered justice to the mastermind of 9/11 attacks, closed a long and painful chapter in American history, and his continued innovative efforts to keep our special operations forces the best in the world make him, without a doubt, one of the most well-respected military leaders of our time, Admiral McRaven.
Well, thank you very much, Bruce. Thanks for those very kind remarks. Chairman Rogers, you were spot on, as we say in the military. Thank you very much, sir. Mike Vickers has been my battle buddy for a very long time now. I can tell you that every major success we have had in special operations in the last 7 years has had Mike Vickers' fingerprints on it, both as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict and now as the Undersecretary for Intelligence. SOF and the nation have benefited immensely from your service, Mike. Thank you very, very much. And the story from Chairman Rogers was true. Chairman Rogers, I can't think of anyone I would rather be co-honorees with tonight than you. Thank you for your steadfast leadership on national security policy, especially at this crucial time, and especially for the support you provide the outstanding men and women of the intelligence community. 2 weeks ago, Chairman Rogers and I were at the retirement ceremony for our very good friend, General Keith Alexander, the head of the National Security Agency. Keith made a point of singling out Mike Rogers for his incredible support to the professionals at NSA during one of the most difficult times in their history. But Chairman, your unfailing support to the NSA and all the intelligence community also resonates within the special operations world, because everything we do, everything, revolves around the magnificent work of this nation's intelligence professionals and those on the Hill that support them. Sir, thank you again for everything that you do for this nation. Well, General Schwartz, Mr. Mosler, Stan Weiss, distinguished members of BENS, flag and general officers, what an honor it is to be here on this evening to accept this award on behalf of the men and women of the U.S. Special Operations Command. Their work, alongside the incredible soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines of the General Purpose Force, has been instrumental in keeping this country safe for the past 13 years and for decades before that. And while I am truly grateful to have our commands named and inscribed alongside other previous honorees, I also want to thank all of you business executives who have been so instrumental in helping the intelligence community and the military for so very, very many years. The relationship between the intelligence community, the special operations community, and the business leaders goes back a very long ways. In fact, the father of both the CIA and special operations was a business executive first. Wild Bill Donovan graduated from Columbia Law School and became a very influential Wall Street lawyer. When World War I broke out, Donovan mobilized the Irish-American contingent in New York and formed the famed 68th New York Volunteers. During the war, he earned the Medal of Honor for his heroism. After the war, he entered politics for a few years, and then in 1932, he returned to a successful business career. As a business executive, during the interwar years, he traveled extensively in Europe as a private citizen and met with dozens of foreign leaders. Through his civilian interaction with these European leaders, Donovan correctly assessed that the war was coming to the continent. It was this insight that caught the eye of Franklin Roosevelt. Even though Donovan and Roosevelt were men from opposite sides of the aisle, Roosevelt very much valued Donovan's opinions. After Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Donovan, once again, as a business executive, was asked to travel to Britain and assess whether the UK could stand up to German aggression. During these trips, Donovan met with Churchill and the directors of the British intelligence services, and he returned to the States to report that the UK could indeed hold out if the U.S. supported the effort. Of course, it wasn't long after that that Bill Donovan was named the coordinator of information, which became the OSS and then later the CIA. Today, in the lobbies of both the CIA and U.S. Special Operations Command hangs a portrait of Bill Donovan, businessman, soldier, and spy. More recently, great Americans and BENS members like Ross Perot have been influential in supporting our Special Operations Forces. In 1973, when the American POWs returned from Vietnam, it was Ross Perot who united them with the Green Berets who so valiantly tried to rescue those POWs from the Sante prisoner of war camp. And every year since, Mr. Perot has hosted the Sante Raiders reunion, bringing together the POWs and everyone who participated in that mission. Mr. Perot was also extensively involved with SOF to include supporting the rescue of 2 EDS employees from Iran by legendary Green Beret Colonel Bull Simons. Perot was also instrumental in supporting the rescue of missionary Gracia Burnham from the Philippines. But most importantly has been Mr. Perot's quiet but unparalleled aid to hundreds of ailing SOF veterans. Ross Perot has given his time, his money, his talent, and his insights to help advance the role of SOF in national security, and he will forever have our gratitude. Just like Norty and Susie Schwartz. Don't let the fact that Norty was the Chief of Staff of the Air Force fool you. Norty is a Special Operations officer through and through. He and Susie served in the 8th Special Operations Squadron with Special Operations Command Europe, as the Deputy Commander of the 1st Special Operations Squadron, as the Wing Commander of the 16th Special Operations Wing, as the Commander of the Special Operations Command Pacific, and from 2000 to 2002, Norty was the Deputy Commander of the entire U.S. Special Operations Command. He and Susie have had an incredible impact on the lives of our SOF warriors for the past 40 years. Now, I know that Norty would be the first to tell you this, that while our SOF warriors have a special mission, they themselves are no more heroic, no more courageous, no more dedicated, no more patriotic than any other soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine. If this past decade has showed us anything, it is that the men and women of this generation, from whatever service, in whatever field, even with their tattoos and their earrings and their hip-hop music, they are some of the finest Americans this country has ever produced. And those young men and women joined because they saw leaders like Norty and Susie Schwartz who care immensely for the well-being of their airmen and their families. Norty, I want to personally thank you and Susie for your unfailing dedication to SOF, to the Air Force, and to the nation. And you continue to serve in this new capacity as the President and CEO of BENS. Thank you very, very much, Norty. A couple of final thoughts. Today, everywhere I turn, BENS members are having an impact on the future of our Special Operations Force. First, you are sharing with us your understanding of the strategic landscape in areas like China, Africa, the Levant, Russia, and the Middle East, the High North, and everywhere else there are U.S. interests. Through your interaction with SOF, BENS is leading the way in educating my leaders in the challenges they will face in these regions of the world. Countries where you do business every day, countries where you know the landscape better than anyone in uniform, countries where the confluence of business and security require in-depth knowledge that is just not resident in SOF. You have expertise that we can never replicate, expertise that is vital for our special operations successes around the globe. I encourage you to continue your outreach, to continue to provide your business talent to the men and women within SOF and the intelligence community who are in need of those insights. Second, The world today is more complex, more chaotic, more unstable than at any time in my 37 years in uniform. The Crimea, Syria, Yemen, Iran, North Africa, Sudan, and North Korea, just to name a few. To deal with these challenges, we will continue to need a strong, agile, and highly professional force. As our budgets decline and our manpower is dramatically reduced, we will continue to need your advocacy to maintain the best force we can at the price the nation can afford. Finally, as this generation of young men and women return home after 13 years of hard combat, they will need support beyond what the government has the ability to provide. At an event last week, I noted that after every major war, our force was cut, and within 10 to 20 years later, we were back in another serious conflict. If this trend holds true, then some of our young soldiers will see war again in their career. We are doing everything we can to take care of these warriors and their families. And I know I speak for all the service chiefs and the secretary when I say that we view this as a moral obligation to our men and women. It is a promise that we must keep. Business leaders like yourselves are giving many of our warriors, some still in uniform, and many of those who are now veterans, an opportunity to work and see how great corporations excel. I guarantee you, I absolutely guarantee you, that if you hire one of these veterans, the return on your investment will be tenfold. They may not have the corporate experience, they may not have the business acumen, they may not have the schooling like many of their counterparts, but they will have leadership skills, determination, and a work ethic that will inspire everyone around them. And if they are a wounded warrior, their corporate colleagues will be astounded by their strength of character, their lack of self-pity, and their sense of humor. It will motivate everyone in the office to excel as well. I believe, as the Congressman said, that we are at a strategic inflection point in our history where chaos seems to reign. And now more than ever, we need your help as corporate leaders, business executives, men and women of incredible talent to continue to lead, to inspire, to support, and to strengthen our national security. I thank you again for this very prestigious award, and on behalf of all the great Special Operations warriors and their families, thank you for what you do every day to keep our military and our nation strong. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just take the opportunity to acknowledge the inescapable fact that neither Chairman Rogers nor Wild Bill McRaven would be worth a diddle were it not for Christy and Georgie Ann. So to Christy and Georgie Ann, thank you very much. Well, we've come to a point, ladies and gentlemen, where I think we should recognize some of those that both the chairman and Admiral McRaven referred to, those who have served so very well and did what we expect our armed forces to do. We are reminded of their sacrifices and what they do to keep us safe. And at times, we are also so impressed with their amazing fortitude. I'd like now to turn our collective attention to a group of men whose lives changed forever on March 21st, 2011. Air Force Major Ken Harney was serving in Operation Odyssey Dawn as an F-15 pilot to help protect and support the aspirations of the people of Libya. After taking off from an airbase in Italy, Major Harney was enforcing the no-fly zone in eastern Libya when he was forced to eject from his F-15 into hostile territory. Now, my friends, just imagine what Major Harney faced. And by the way, there's another great American in the room tonight who faced similar challenges, and I think we owe him a round of applause, General Chuck Boyd, who many of you know, who was also a shoot-down in another war. Well, Major Harney went down, and he didn't know if he'd landed in territory immediately controlled by friendly rebel forces or whether it was Colonel Gaddafi's troops. Capture or death might soon become a reality. But what happened next reminds us of what is great about our armed forces. Even in the face of adversity and with the presence of great personal risk, keeping the line of communications open with another F-15 pilot still in the air, Major Harney was soon rescued by a V-22 Osprey carrying Marines who quickly landed the aircraft, received the pilot, and lifted off safely from the Libyan territory in just a matter of minutes. They helped save Major Harney's life. And until tonight, the Marines and Major Harney haven't seen each other since that fateful evening over 3 years ago. For those of us who have worn the uniform, there's often mythology, perhaps true on the athletic fields of the service academies, that the various armed forces are competitive. And although I'm still a little partial to the Air Force, the actions taken by these men demonstrate that regardless of service, every American on the battlefield is a colleague, a brother, or a sister. All service affiliations are instantaneously superseded by the clear mandate to bring every American home. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the great privilege of introducing Major Ken Harney and the 4 Marines who rescued him in Libya. Captain Joe Anderjack, Captain Eric Cole, Sergeant Mike DeMars, and Sergeant Jeremy Gilbertson. Please join me, gentlemen, on the stage. Thank you. Gentlemen, we are all humbled by your presence this evening. We are proud of your service to the United States, to your role in helping to free the people of Libya, and on the battlefield that fateful March evening. On behalf of business executives for national security, and everyone in the audience tonight, we thank you for what you did, for your commitment to fight and sacrifice for one another, for what your noble actions imply for future operations. And the clear message, ladies and gentlemen, that a rescue of an absconded or a detained American, the message it sends to parents and friends and family of those who serve or those who might choose to serve, American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, in the uncertain years ahead. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we do extraordinary things to ensure that no American is left behind. That is the promise, and these gentlemen kept the promise. Thank you. Thanks very much. Go ahead. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our program for this evening. Thank you so very much to our two honorees and their families, to the airmen who we just acknowledged here tonight, to all of you for your support of the evening, and importantly for the BENS mission, which very simply is for men and women of common cause in the private sector who want to see our government perform, and in particular, to raise the performance of those who serve in the national security sector. We collectively as a staff intend to keep this common cause alive, and we intend to fulfill our collective potential as individual patriots and members of a unique and, yes, an elite organization. Thank you very much, and again, have a pleasant evening.